All right, everybody. Today is Monday, October 6th, year of our Lord 2025. And I hope you had a good weekend. Good Lord's Day, good everything. I know I did. I'm still kind of recovering from being sick from last weekend, but I'm just about there. My voice is not quite all the way there yet. My lungs aren't all the way there yet, but I feel pretty good. So, in any case, the Jets, great weekend for the Jets. Absolutely. It's funny because I'm actually at the point now where I actually prefer when the Jets lose. Because I really enjoy, maybe I'm sick in the head, who knows, but I really enjoy watching Jets YouTube content when they lose because there's a lot of despair and anger and frustration, and I kind of enjoy it in a sick way, and I like the Mets. I don't like when the Mets lose, but I like the Mets in an ordered way. Like it didn't always used to be that way. I used to let the Jets and the Mets ruin my whole week, back when I was a real loser. In fact, I remember this one time I was on a first date with a woman named Ivy in New York, and we went to a bar to watch the Mets and the Jets. They were playing on the same day, and it was one of those things where if the Mets won this game, they make the playoffs. If they lose, they don't. And I think it was against the Marlins, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of the same situation as this year. And, of course, they lost, and I was all depressed and angry and frustrated and stuff like that and made a fool of myself. Needless to say, I never had another date with Ivy. But in any case, that's how it used to be. Now, when the Mets lose, I'm not happy, but I'm not, upset, really. It's just kind of like, that stinks. It's more ordered. But with the Jets, it's to the point now where I prefer the Jets to lose. Now, if they win, I'm not upset, right? I'm not upset. But if I kind of do feel like I'm missing out on the despair. I love watching Joe Beningo and the WFAN, radio hosts talk about all the despair. I don't know. Maybe I'm sick in the head, but I'm looking forward. I've got my whole list and my whole lineup of Jets YouTubers to watch while I work today. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. This is the worst Jets team I've ever seen, and that is a huge accomplishment. I mean, there's been some bad teams. This is historically bad. Fantastic. I love it. Maybe you love it too. I don't know. But, let's begin. We're going to finish Kevin Briggins here. He's got his thing. He's upset about the new Christendom thing about black culture, and we're going to finish it. And then I've got a bonus piece of content from Samuel Say. Samuel Say said something very weird yesterday, and I want to talk about it because I feel like I can bring a little bit of street smarts to it. You know what I mean? I got a little bit of street smarts up in here, and we're gonna talk about why I think it's so weird. So anyway, let's begin. Yeah, guys, by the way, I'm going to start putting at least 1 or 2 chapters in each of my videos because I know a lot of you guys hate when I talk about the Jets and the Mets and all that stuff, and I'm going to keep doing it because I don't care, but I will I'll try. I can't promise I'll try, but I'll try to put chapters so that way you could skip all the nonsense and get right to the video. So I'll try, okay? That's what I'll do. But let's get into this. Kevin Briggins, it's about a minute left. We're going to let him finish his whole thought here.
For these high crime inner city violent areas, that's not where most of us live.
Yeah.
That culture is what gets highlighted because it is what exists in areas that are predominantly black. But it's important to remember that the vast majority of black people do not live in those areas. Yeah, and even those who do are against this type of violence and crime and things of that nature.
Yeah, but we talked about this last week. Yeah, they're against it theoretically, but there is a big group of nonviolent black people that really aren't against it in any meaningful way. They don't vote against it. They don't really do much of anything about it. In fact, Kevin even admitted, they kind of don't even talk about it publicly. Only a very few people will talk about it publicly, how this is bad. I mentioned Virgil Walker. He's talked about it. I mentioned, funny enough, I got a text message from Seiko Woods. I know a lot of you guys don't like Seiko, but Seiko and I text every now and then. Every now and then. We're not best friends, but, we text every now and then. And I have to give him credit where credit is due. I mean, Seiko has talked about black culture in this way for years, probably before I was on YouTube, and and stuff like that. So hats off to Seiko for that, because he gets it. Seiko understands exactly what this is all about. But the thing is, those guys exist, and I'm glad those guys exist. But you got to understand, like, you're the fringe in the black community. You're the fringe, because even if people are theoretically against this part of black culture, they don't really talk about it. They don't really do much of anything about it. And that's kind of the point, right? And so, yeah, sure. I mean, most black people aren't violent. I mean, I don't know. What you want? What you want? A cookie? You know what I mean? You're not supposed to be violent. And it's like, okay, great. You're not. Most of them are not violent, but most of them don't do much of anything about it. In fact, what they do by not talking about it, by continuing to vote for Democrats and all this kind of stuff, actually perpetuates it. It actually makes you treats it with kid gloves. Actually, increases the situation that we're finding ourselves in. So, I understand, like, feeling the need to be like, well, not all black people are like this. I mean, it's very true, right? But to pretend like you don't understand why this is how black culture is, predominantly perceived or anything like that, that's just very strange to me, to even want to pretend, because as you saw last week, or the last episode, Kevin kind of gets it. He talks about how very few people talk about it. Don't air your dirty laundry in front of the white folk, like that kind of thing. Like, that's part of it. That's part of the culture, and that's not a good part of it. That's a negative part of it. In any case, let's continue.
I would love to go on this podcast and talk to these guys and help them make sense of this from a broader...
And like the whole thing with Westboro, he tried to use that Westboro thing, right? And that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, because Westboro Baptist does their things that they do, they picket the funerals, whatever, and all that, and they have their signs and stuff. And Christians in mass speak against it, right? In mass, they speak against it. And so it's like, so we don't actually have the same problem in the Christian community that black people have in their community, right? It's not the same. He's trying to make it sound similar. Like, what would you do if we just said, well, that's white culture? Well, it obviously isn't, because every time they go picket, 1 million people condemn it. It's not fringe to condemn Westboro Baptist Church. That's the thing. It's not fringe to condemn Westboro Baptist Church, but it is fringe in the black community to speak against the negative parts of black culture. That is a huge, colossal difference. It's a colossal difference. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, that it's very obvious. It's almost hard to respond to something like this, because it's just apparently different. Like, on the surface, it's different. And so it's like someone coming up to you and saying, hey, the sky is green. It's like, well, how do you argue with that? It's like, no, I see that it's blue. You know what I mean? I can see that it's blue, and so can you. So it's like, well, what are the arguments that you make against the sky being blue? Like, it's just like, it's so, you can make arguments, but it's apparent to anyone who's paying attention.
Issue, like, how did black culture get here? It's been a lot of factors that have led to the decline of the black community since the 1950s. Like I said, if we don't help people make sense of the things they're seeing in terms of violent crime, they will come to their own conclusions, and many of those conclusions will be harmful to the black community and to just relations between blacks and whites in general. We don't want to go backwards.
He can barely keep it together, like his line of thinking, because on the one hand, he's trying to tell you, no, this is not black culture. And then on the other hand, he's saying, how did black culture get here? Well, we got to explain how. And so it's like, well, which is it? Is it not black culture, or is black culture in a bad place and we need to explain to white folk how it got there so they don't get, bad conclusions? Those two things don't go together. It either is that way or it isn't that way. So, like, again, like, the reason why he's struggling and the reason why he's contradicting his own line of reasoning is because he gets it. He does get it. He just doesn't like that Brian is saying it. It's really what it boils down to. He doesn't like that Brian is saying it. So it's like he wants to argue against Brian, but Brian was saying something correct that Kevin actually believes. And so that's why you get that. It's like, this is not black culture. We need to explain to white folks how black culture got here. Okay, well, which is it? Is it not black culture, or do we need to explain it because it is really black culture, but we don't want it to be? Because that's the thing. Someone like Kevin doesn't want it to be like this. And I commend that. My hat's off to Kevin Briggins, right? He doesn't want it to be this way. And he wants to explain how it got here. And here's the thing about the explanation. I think it's a multifaceted explanation. There's lots of reasons why it got to the place that it is. And there's political reasons, there's social reasons, there's all kinds of reasons, right? But the thing is, like, it is there and Kevin knows it. That's the point. And so feel free to explain away, all you want about how this has happened. But let's stop pretending like it hasn't happened, because it definitely has happened. This is what black culture is known for right now. It's just a fact. And so there's reasons for it. And the thing is, Brian, I don't think would deny that there's reasons for it. They're not excuses. They don't excuse it. But, like, there are reasons. But this is the thing. Like, you could see him. He's even struggling to keep it together in a 9-minute video. It's only 9 minutes, and he's struggling to keep his argument together. And the reason why is because he knows Brian is right. He just doesn't like that Brian is saying it. That black culture is kind of affecting Kevin more than he thinks it is.
And start reverting to old beliefs that aren't rooted in truth. We want to be rooted in truth, and we want to have an understanding of one another. And so I encourage people to speak out. I encourage people to have these conversations, but have them openly, have them honestly. Let's be slow to take offense, give each other some grace and just correct each other where it's needed. With that said, you all have a good one.
Hey, if you enjoyed this content, come check out the Center for Biblical Unity. Download our free ebook, Is Christianity a White Man's Religion? Click on the link in the description below.
Think about why that would even need to be a book, too. You know what I mean? That's a very interesting thing. Why does that even need to be a book? Well, there's a very good reason why. There's a very good reason why, because in many ways, white culture has been extremely affected by Christianity. So much so that some people, non-whites, will say, well, that's just white culture. And that's why you get all these good things talked about as if they're white supremacy, like having a functional family. That's white supremacy. You know what I mean? That's white supremacy. Having children. That's that fascism that we're talking about. People say that kind of stuff all the time, and that's because white culture is pretty good. That's what it's known for, good things a lot of the time. Now, of course, there's bad aspects that there's bad things that white people are known for. No one's denying that. But to say that it's somehow like it's just the same thing, like look at those white folks in Westboro Baptist, how would you feel if that was Christian culture? Well, I don't know how I would feel. I guess I would feel bad, but it's like, I don't know, like it's so obviously not Christian culture that it's kind of like a meaningless question. I mean, I can answer it. Yeah, if that was what Christians were known for, picketing funerals and stuff, yeah, that would be bad. But it's not. I would feel sad about that, but it's not known for that. I don't know. I mean, it's just a very strange thing. And that's the thing with Kevin. I think he gets it, but he doesn't quite get it. He gets it, but he's actually affected by that part of black culture that he was denying, where it's like we don't talk about these things in front of white people. Like, he's still willing to do it, which I'm grateful for. Again, Kevin, hats off to you. But the whole idea of him really doing this video just because it was Brian who said it, like if it was any black guy that said what Brian said, this would have been a blip on the radar. They wouldn't have said a single word about it. But Brian said it, so I got to fight against it. Like that, I mean, you're kind of affected by this negative part of black culture a little more than you think. In any case, let's continue. So here's the tweet that I want to talk about with Samuel Say. Slow to write. Very ironic Twitter handle. Slow to write. I mean, he so often just spouts off at the mouth any chance he gets, that kind of thing. He wants to be slow to write, but he's not really that slow to write. Maybe slow to think. But not so much slow to write. So here's Samuel Say. This is what he says yesterday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He says, we had a bomb threat as I was preaching about kinism at a church in Kentucky this morning. Someone left a suspicious box in front of the church and called the police. We obviously have to take this seriously. Please pray for the church and please pray for me and my family. We had a bomb threat as I was preaching about kinism at the church in Kentucky this morning. Someone left a suspicious box in front of the church and called the police. We obviously have to take this seriously. Please pray for the church and please pray for me and my family. This is a very strange tweet for so many reasons. Now, I am not one. A lot of people were responding to this negatively, saying that they didn't believe it. This doesn't happen. You know, right-wing people don't do this kind of stuff and stuff like that. I actually don't think so. I think this kind of thing could happen. Right? This kind of thing could happen. So that's not my position. But this is a strange tweet, a very strangely worded tweet as well. Notice some of the verbs here, right? It's just very strange. We had a bomb threat as I was preaching about kinism at a church in Kentucky this morning. So he wrote this. He's in Kentucky on the eastern seaboard. And this morning, he says, we had a bomb threat. We had a bomb threat. You know, it's past tense. We had a bomb threat. Okay. He had a bomb threat. Notice he decides to say, I was preaching about kinism. So Samuel wants you to connect this bomb threat to his preaching on kinism. Otherwise, he would just say, I was just preaching, right? I was preaching. We had a bomb threat. So he wants you to connect this to kinism. And so the idea is that this bomb threat was called in with a suspicious package because he was preaching on kinism. And those racists out there decided that was enough and they were going to do a bomb threat just to stop him from preaching about kinism. A little strange, right? A little strange. Now, notice the bomb threat itself. He says, someone left a suspicious box in front of the church and called the police. So the person who left the box called the police on himself to say he was going to bomb this church, is what he's saying. Very unusual. Very unusual. And then he changes the verb tense. Obviously, we have to take this very seriously. Now it's a present tense. We have to take this seriously. Not we had to take this seriously. We have to take this seriously. So at this point, he's still taking this very seriously, right? Which is, okay, I mean, I can understand that, but obviously this happened in the morning, so you already know that it was just an Amazon box, you know, or FedEx box and not a bomb. But he's trying to milk this now that he's under threat, right? Because there's all these like radical militant kinists out there, right? There's all these radical kinists out there that are willing to assassinate people that preach against kinism, is what he's trying to get you to say. We have to take this seriously. You know, there's all these guys out there that are so pro-kinism that they can't abide anyone preaching against it, and so they'll call in a bomb threat, at least, but he's going to take it seriously, so it could be a bomb next time, is what he's saying. And so now it's like, you know, we're under attack by all these radical, militant, you know, frothing at the mouth kinists. Please pray for the church and please pray for me and my family. This is very odd. This is very odd. Because, number one, we're supposed to somehow believe, and this is very strange, right? Not only are there so many radical, you know, kinists out there, but they're also on top of it. They're on top of things, right? They know when the people are going out to preach about kinism, they know where they're at, so they're going to coordinate their sleeper cells and all this stuff to do these bomb threats. They knew he was talking about kinism, which, I mean, I suppose this is all possible. I mean, it's possible that there's, you know, some radical kinists out there that are willing to call in bomb threats and you know, drop a package and call the police and stuff. And I suppose it's possible. I mean, I suppose. But what's interesting about this is in the past few weeks, we've seen a lot of anti-Christian, just in general, violence, right? So it's curious as to why wouldn't he assume that this was just a kind of a, and I say just, but obviously this is a bad thing, but just against Christianity, right? Like we're just going to call in bomb threats to Christians because that would actually make a lot more sense given the time it is, basically. You know, we've got tons of this kind of violence going on all over the place, you know, against churches. But Samuel says, no, this is about kinism. Otherwise, he wouldn't have mentioned it. It's about kinism. So, I mean, I guess, you know, the person who called could have told the police, like, I don't like this anti-kinism preaching, so that's why I put the Amazon box there, you know, and all that, I suppose. But if that was the case, don't you think Samuel would have said, you know, the police said that the person who called them said he did this because, you know, he's so pro-kinism that he can't abide anyone preaching against it. Very strange. Very strange indeed. Now, I'm not saying that he made this up. I'm not saying that. But this is a weird tweet. This is a very weird tweet. I don't understand. I don't get it. It's an evil world we live in, that's for sure. It's an evil world. I don't know, man. I think Samuel Say is Samuel Say is an interesting character, you know. He's part of Woke Wars 1, you know, and yeah, he's the star of Woke Wars 1, you know. And now he's on the other side of Woke Wars 2, and so my opinion is that he's probably going to be interpreting anything that happens negative, like, you know, and he's as if he's the only one that gets death threats and stuff. Like, I always find that humorous, you know, people, you know, blasting their death threats about it kind of gives you bona fides, right? Like the creepy letters that they get, the weird stuff, you know, as if like, you know, yeah, it's just that must mean I'm over the target. You know, I'm over the target. Obviously, you know, I'm standing for righteousness, and I'm right because I get all these death threats and all this kind of. That's the way it's presented, right? And it's presented as like a, here I stand, I can do no other, no matter what you do to me and stuff. This is why people are tempted to fake this kind of stuff all the time. You got to look at this kind of stuff with a critical eye. I don't trust Samuel. I'll just put it that way. I don't trust Samuel. This doesn't move the needle for me. I'm glad it wasn't a real bomb, and all this kind of stuff. But you could always tell, like, there's obviously he doesn't have a lot of information here, but he's like, look, this is about kinism. It's all those racists out there, you know what I mean? There's all those Stephen Wolfian Christian nationalists out there. They're just rabid, you know. They're terrorists. They're definitely terrorists. When you lead off with that, and then you got the weird, like, you know, he changes the verb tense now because now he wants you to think that he's constantly under threat. He's under threat now, you know, because of all these rabid rabid kinists out there. It's like I don't know, man. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess, like, I'm trying to think. Like, I've had creepy letters sent to me and threats and stuff like that sent to me. I've never really thought to, you know, call a lot of attention to it. Because, you know, honestly, that's kind of what they want. They kind of want attention. They want you to feel scared. And if you're one of these guys that has sent me creepy letters and weird threats and stuff like that, you know, to my house and stuff, like, I just want you to know, like, I never really was scared of you. It didn't work. It didn't work. So, you know, whatever. But I don't know. I'm not saying anything. I'm just telling you, like, listen, you read something like this, and you gotta read it with a critical eye. Like, I don't know. I don't like this tweet. I don't like it. It's just very strange. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video helpful. God bless.